Hey guys, welcome back to BoreDraw. This is episode 22, and today we've got some very special guests.
We've got Jamie and Kweku from the WeTalkFootball Podcast to join us today. Lads, how you doing?
All good, boys. All good. How you getting on?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad at all. Excited to talk to you about all things football, and especially your boys' teams. So, Kweku, you're a Chelsea fan, and Jamie, you're a West Ham fan.
You must be very excited. You're wearing an Arsenal shirt right now. Obviously,
Yeah, can you see me chomping at the bits to get into you boys? But I don't want to... We'll start on like a nice kilter, and then we'll probably delve into this season. I feel like this season's going to be a good topic for both of your boys' teams. But before we get into Chelsea and West Ham, do you just want to introduce yourselves and kind of what you boys do podcast-wise? Because you're kind of in a like similar phase of your podcasting as we are, kind of just like just chat about football all the time. And I think that's...
And see what comes.
Yeah, see what happens.
Well, obviously, like you say, we're at the same stage. You guys, maybe you've not been doing it for the same amount of time, but you're way more professional than us. You've got mics, you've got shirts in the background. We're just playing it by ear at the moment. So you guys are killing it. Obviously,
fake it till you make it, guys.
That is literally well, we like distract from how like average we are by having all the glitz and glamour, whereas you boys, because you're quality, you don't need all that stuff.
No, you've been too kind. There's too many niceties right now. But my name's Kweku. I work at Talk Sport. I do some work for Sky Sports, work for ESPN, and work for Chelsea Football Club as well. Got into the industry maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. We had our 2-year anniversary for our podcast last week.
Congrats.
Thank you. 2 years in dealing with this guy, so I deserve a medal. But yeah, we started it in the midst of pandemic. We were both jobless, both hopeless, both hapless. And we've just loved talking about footy. Like Jamie was a West Ham fan, I'm a lifelong Chelsea fan. And so we thought we'd start a podcast, put a camera, put a microphone in front of us and just start talking shit about football. So I started the WeTalkFootball Podcast in September 2020. Off of the back of that, got very lucky, sent some emails out to some different people, got some work experience at Talk Sport, making cups of teas and coffees and the grind.
Yeah.
And I remember being starstruck. I was like, if I've got to make Carlton Cole coffees for the next 2 or 3 years of my life, I'm going to do it. But luckily, I managed to progress from there, and now I produce a Thursday night show at Talk Sport. I talk on air at Sky Sports and Talk Sport, and working for Chelsea Football Club as well. So it's been a crazy journey, but I'm enjoying it.
Nah, it sounds sick, mate.
Yeah, he's a modest guy. He's doing very, very well. I hate him, but he does very, very well. He says he's got to put up with me, but like, anyone that knows us personally knows there's only one person that's got to put up with someone in this group. When it comes to anything technical related or behind the camera, that's me, right?
Yeah, the money man.
This guy turns up, records when he can be bothered.
Bollocks.
It goes home, and then it's all on me. So for me, I'm Jamie. Obviously, like Kweku, I lost my job in the middle of 2020. Obviously, we're in the midst of a pandemic at the time. Me and Quake's obviously been friends for like 20 plus years, started the podcast. And then from there, it kind of just snowballed for me in a slightly different direction to Kweku. I started doing a bunch of work with YouTubers, editing for, lots of YouTubers in the country, whether that's like Rory Jennings or Adam McCullough or whatnot.
Yeah.
Nice. Working across their YouTube channel, editing videos for them and whatnot. That's why they've been on our channel and things like that. And now I work for an Asian broadcaster called Mola, who are like the home of fighting in places like Singapore and Malaysia and Indonesia. And in this country, they're building up an audience here with in-house productions of television shows. So I pretty much work across those shows like Pub Talk, headed up by Ray Parler and Alan Brazil, and we interview prominent figures in the world, whether that's Tyson Fury, Ebony Bridges, Harry Redknapp,
Piers Morgan, for example.
Quite polarizing figures, and they've got the highlights and lowlights of their career. So, yeah, like Kweku 2 years ago, I was working as a nutritionist, completely different career. Started the podcast, and it's kind of just snowballed from there, really.
Just to highlight, I wasn't working as a nutritionist. These arms. I was working in software sales, but yeah, doing very different things to what we're doing now, but obviously grateful for the journey.
We're enjoying it and loving every minute of it.
And like the common denominator across all of it is like both of you boys love football, and getting involved in that in whatever way possible is like the best.
I've got a question for Kweku, yeah? How does someone become a Chelsea fan? I need to know.
All right, so this is actually crazy. It's come full circle. So my dad loves footy, but Ghanaian first generation. He doesn't really support a team. He just loves football. So he had his favourite players, whether it be Tony Yeboah or whoever it was. But my birthday's in August, and in reception, do you know like when parents are trying to get to know each other, you have like joint parties?
Yeah.
Shout out Connor Hartigan, because I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't him. But Connor Hartigan, his birthday's August the 10th, mine's August the 11th. And I went to his house because they were organising a joint party. And his family are huge Chelsea fans. And I remember they had a post. It was either a poster or a calendar on the wall of Gianfranco Zola.
Love it.
And my favourite colour was blue. And from then I was hooked. And it was in the times. So I'm 29. So that was either 97 or 98. So it's the times where everyone's a United fan or everyone's an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, literally.
In the contrarian that I am, I quite liked supporting the team that not many people supported. Obviously, he was very, very lucky because the money came in 2003. But yeah, you don't really get many black Chelsea fans, but that's the reason why I'm Chelsea. But the full circle part of it was his mum messaged me on Instagram because she saw me on Sky Sports, and she was like, "Oh yeah, how's family getting on? I hope you're still a Chelsea fan." I was like, "Surely, if it weren't for your old man and your son, I wouldn't be where I am now." So
shout out the Hartigans, love to see it.
The Hartigans, man.
Yeah, no, love that.
What a story.
Love that. And Jamie, West Ham, where's that come from? Are you just like the West Ham local, or is that something a bit more exciting?
So unfortunately from my dad.
Okay, it's one of those ones.
28 years of pain, 2 years of positivity, and now we're back to the depths and despair of being a West Ham fan. So, I'm joking, obviously. I love West Ham. Family originate out of the East End. So obviously, yeah. Mum's a Liverpool fan. Dad's a West Ham fan. Obviously, I made the right choice in choosing.
It was one of those ones. In my family's a mess. My dad's United. My brother's Chelsea. I'm Arsenal. So we're all over the gas here.
Yeah. That's similar to our family as well. My brother's West Ham, so I'm surrounded by West Ham.
Does he get on with Jamie? Is he like fucking? They go West Ham games together.
Yeah, they don't go to games. They get on. Obviously, me and Jamie grew up together, so they know very well. But yeah, surrounded by a multitude of fans that support different teams.
That's what keeps it interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does.
What about you two? What about you two?
Me,
my dad's more exciting than Arsenal.
Yeah, my dad's QPR fan. When he was younger, when he was a kid, he was brought along to Chelsea games, but he didn't like the football, so then he was brought along to QPR games, and it's trickled down. Yeah, and yeah, we're in Watford, so it's not too far to go to Loftus Road, so nice and easy. Yeah, and that was it. Just love the club. I like being different as well. Everyone at school, it was like everyone was Arsenal or Chelsea or Man United.
I'm a sheep, apparently. I've got so like all my older generation family, they all support Chelsea, and then like one generation below them is all Arsenal, but then a generation below them is Chelsea again. So I think it's just kind of wherever you slot in is what you end up with in my family.
Nice.
Is it not the Thierry Henry effect now?
Big time though. Him and like so we're both 25, so I was like peak Thierry Henry, and then for me, Cesc Fabregas. I know he's a bit of like a polarizing figure in terms of some Arsenal fans love him, some think he's a snake, blah blah blah. I think I still love him. And so like when I was growing up, seeing this techie little Latino boy, I was like, yes, mate, I want to be like him.
Interestingly, on Cesc Fabregas, here's something for you as well. So my company, Mola, they own Como 1907.
I love Como.
Yeah, so Fabregas has just signed for Como.
Yeah.
You used to check them out. They've got the waviest kit in it.
And are they the one that's like their stadium is like right on the...
Yeah,
like
Como,
right on the lake.
Como,
it looks
is it
peng.
Lake Como? Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice.
And they've got Dennis Irwin and Mark Bircham.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, big Cesc Fabregas fan over here. So yeah, that's kind of like when I was growing up, I just wanted to be that techie little central midfielder.
Wanted to be.
And I still am. catch me at Power League or something and you'd have a look. But
should we talk about this season?
Yeah, we'll talk about this season. Who should we start on? West Ham or Chelsea?
Well, have you noticed that we're trying to like distract you from talking about this?
You take our minds off it.
We're here to get into the juicy.
Yeah.
All right, the tears might start streaming. I think we'll start with West Ham.
Yeah.
Obviously, last season,
Mega
phenomenal,
season.
phenomenal. Just fighting on all fronts and looking like a team with Jared Bowen just absolutely firing like a man, just possessed. Yeah,
best winger in England, I think, last year potentially. I don't know. There's an argument, but
this season it hasn't really clicked so far. Brought in the likes of Scamacca and Paqueta.
The transfer window was mega. Paqueta, huge signing. Scamacca, huge signing. Tilo Correa, good player. So yeah, the transfer window was good. So you must have gone into this season thinking, if like last season and the season before were anything to go off of, we can only be looking up really. And obviously still early days, what are we like 8 games in, if that. Some teams haven't even played 8. So no one's going to be like, oh, West Ham are not going to make top half, not going to make European football, because there's still a chance they will. But right now, where do you stand? What's going on with West Ham?
I don't think there's like a definitive, answer that will give you the reason as to why. I think let's look at the facts. I mean, at the end of last season, obviously we had 2 incredible seasons for West Ham, and at the end of last season, a lot of prominent figures left the team. So obviously Mark Noble retired, West Ham, synonymous with the club. Stuart Pearce, obviously second in command to David Moyes, he left the club as well. Other players like Ryan Fredericks, who's huge in the dressing room, like Andre Yarmolenko, they all left the club. Yeah. So obviously we needed to go out and replace them anyway. And that's why you saw the big transfer window that we had. I don't think any West Ham would have really had any foresight that we would have gone and spent the money that we did. But I don't think there's any West Ham fans that are necessarily complaining. I think we were quite unfortunate. Obviously, we brought in a centre-back in Naya Figuered, obviously got injured in the season. And I think on the face of it, I think when you look at West Ham as a snapshot this season, we haven't necessarily played well in many games. I think but in multiple games, I think we've been quite unlucky with decisions. I think about obviously the Chelsea decision.
Here we go. He hasn't stopped crying. He hasn't stopped crying for 2 weeks.
On like a side note, the VAR officiating this season has been a mess. Yeah. So I get what you mean, and that West Ham game, I totally agree. That was kind of, we had like a little segment on one of our podcasts a couple of weeks back when that happened, just talking about that weekend. I think Newcastle had a decision as well that weekend that went against them that was a complete mess. And so I get what you mean. Like, I think it is a case of definitely more unlucky. Like you said, with your centre-back, Aguerd, getting injured, there is an element of luck to it, definitely.
I looked at it and I was wondering whether it could be like fatigue carrying on from the amount of games they played last season. I don't know whether that's a factor. I know they had sort of the same break as everyone else. Yeah. But like, they just don't look as sharp and energetic as the West Ham we saw last season.
I wouldn't even disagree with you there. I think the things that have become synonymous under the David Moyes' tenure at West Ham is the relentless work rate. People like Jared Bowen, like you spoke about, spearheading that. But I think there's too many players that have been performing over the last couple of years that are now underperforming in our side and aren't being taken out of the sides. People like Thomas Soucek, people like Jared Bowen. They're not performing well.
Yeah,
they're not
I agree.
necessarily starting the new players. Like we have Maxwell Cornet, we have Said Benrahma ready and tailor-made for a starting 11 right now. We've got
100%.
Downs, we've got other players that can come in and facilitate a role, and I don't think there's enough squad rotation necessarily right now. Like I said, I think the main things that have changed from West Ham perspective, I think as much as we've been unlucky, we have also been quite underwhelming in the intensity that we're playing at. It's been very, very lackluster, very slow at times, very laboured, but I'm not necessarily worried. I still think that we have enough players.
Too much quality.
I don't want to say that because
I'll say it for you.
As a West Ham fan, I've seen a West Ham side get relegated with players like Joe Cole in it. You know what I mean? So I never want to be the guy to say too much quality, but I don't think we're going to get relegated. Let's just put it out.
What I will say as well is so ironic because everyone thinks that transfer is an exact science, and for the last couple of seasons, all I've heard from West Ham fans is we need to bring in players. The summer they bring in players, they're sitting in the relegation zone. So these, and me and Jamie had a conversation off camera about it. In terms of like what Moyes did build and cultivate at West Ham was a sense of togetherness, and that squad harmony was so important. And obviously they're suffering from losing Mark Noble, who retired, and Stuart Pearce, who took a step back. But it tried to introduce so many new players into a system that's quite established, into a system that these players recognise already, the established players do. It's quite difficult, and we've seen that with Scamacca, it's taken them a little bit more time to embed than we would have expected. He's not starting all the games.
Yeah,
Maxwell Cornet is not starting all the time. Emerson's not starting. And if you look at West Ham's results, apart from when they got spanked, I say spanked, they lost 2-0 to Brighton, but Brighton thoroughly outplayed them.
The game, one of the worst games I've ever been to. That Brighton were incredible,
and Brighton have been amazing this season. And Brighton will do that to a lot of teams. But you look at West Ham, and their game's been very tight against my team, Chelsea. They were unlucky not to get something from the game. the Spurs game. So West Ham, it can go either way. I think what we're seeing in the Premier League right now is an increased mid-table. So the top six are the top six.
Yeah.
And then if you look at a side like Newcastle, who was supposed to be amazing this season, they're on the same amount of points as.
Yeah.
So West Ham with a couple of wins will definitely change their position. I think where West Ham fans are very worried at the moment is the game against Everton was a game that they would have expected to win. And Everton side,
that's where you want to get your points against
exactly.
teams.
So,
yeah.
But you said it and Jamie said it as well. West Ham got too much quality to worry about their position in the Premier League, but it's a troubling start to the season because they're expected to push the top six.
Obviously,
what I would say, to type as well, is I would take off a 15th in the Premier League if we have Europa Conference League. I think we're one of the strongest sides in that.
Yeah.
I would take a solid run in that. I'm on wax last year saying I would take I think I'd take 13th. I think I said last year if we had like a very good run in the Europa League, and we ended up finishing 7th.
Yeah, and did a good run. Yeah.
So for me, I've never seen my side win anything other than playoff games. So if we go out there and win a competition where I think we have the quality in when you look at the other sides in there, if we can go out there, I think I would be happy to sacrifice league form a little.
Nice little European away day. That's what the dreams are made of.
A little bit of a question. Like Mikel Antonio, for me, he's so important to the way West Ham play. And he obviously had that stretch, like it was 2 seasons ago when he scored for like 7 games in a row at the beginning of the season, just absolutely looked like an unstoppable menace. Bringing in Skamaka, a different type of forward, someone who's involved in the build-up play, but in a different role, potentially deeper, not looking to break lines as much as Antonio does. How do you see sort of the phasing out of Antonio and bringing in Skamaka going? And does it worry you? Do you think that could be a reason why West Ham have lacked a little bit of bite in front of goal? Do you know what I mean?
It's a difficult one. I mean, Mikel Antonio ultimately has been fulfilling a role for a couple of years. He's not really a striker. I mean,
he's kind of played all over the place, hasn't he? And kind of ended up at striker.
He's played winger. He's played right back. I remember seeing him play against, Crystal Palace at right back and give the ball away for a goal. That's how much of like a utility man he is. But as much as I say that, he's done an incredible job for us. Yeah. He did go on like a very goalless, barren run for quite some time. And football's about scoring goals and winning games. Ultimately, if you're not scoring goals, you're not going to win games. We've scored 2 goals this season. There's a reason we haven't won. I think for me, and the phasing out, I don't necessarily know if it's a phasing out because I can still see Mikel Antonio probably playing for a season or 2. If not this at the end of this season, it's definitely another one. I think Skamaka obviously he is a different player, like you say, but I think through bringing Skamaka in and then some of the other players we've brought in as a result, you look at people like Emerson Palmieri, or you look at Maxwell Cornet, players that are like very attacking focused, so you don't necessarily have to get the legs from Skamaka because you'll get them from other places on the pitch. You'll get that delivery in the box and whatnot. So I don't know if it's necessarily a phase out. I'd say what it does do is it gives actually us for this season especially, it's not really working now, but it does give us like another dimension. Last year, 100%. We didn't have Antonio. There's a reason we went out of the Europa League in the semi-finals, and that was our squad depth. I think now we have, as much as David Moyes, there's a reason he's called Dithering Dave by the West Ham fans. As much as he doesn't really change his approach and whatnot, and he isn't changing the starting lineup, we do have more options now. So I'm not necessarily worried about that.
Yeah, and especially like now that you're in European competitions, depth is like the most important thing in the squad. Like you said, if you could label that as the main reason you went out of the Europa League last year, is because if you can't handle midweek games, weekend games, midweek games, constantly, it takes a toll on the players. And so, I think there's a case where like some people look in from the outside and they're like, oh, these are signings for the sake of signings. But I don't think that's the case with West Ham, because we were talking about Nottingham Forest on an earlier podcast and how people look in at their transfer business and think, fuck me, signing 25 players, like that is just signings for the sake of signings. Whereas I don't think that's the case for West Ham. The players you got in are all good quality, and that's what you want. You want depth in key areas, and players like Lucas Paquetá, like a centre mid to go alongside Declan Rice. Now that you, like you said, lost Mark Noble and you need kind of depth in midfield, I think he's a quality player. And so, I don't think it's not
a time to be worried.
Yeah,
for West Ham
I wouldn't
fans,
be saying it's worrying times yet.
You're being very nice, guys. You're being very nice.
I think I actually said on one of our
Let's go to Chelsea.
very early podcasts. I don't know what came over me. It must have been like some like truth moment. You know when they say like if you have a bit of alcohol, the truth comes out. I said West Ham were my second favourite team in the league. And I don't know what happened. I don't know where. Honestly, I don't know where it came from. It just like a couple of pints in, and I was just like, yeah, West Ham are the second favourite team, and now it's stuck with me apparently.
Oh, I like the story.
I said something about the story.
It's like what Kweku said. Like it's the unity. Like you didn't have to be a West Ham fan last year to appreciate.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I was fortunate enough to go to some of the European games last year at the London Stadium. I've heard everyone slating the London Stadium, and it isn't a football stadium, but that's one of the best atmospheres I've ever been at. The year game, for example. And it was like everyone's second favourite team for a period, whether you want to admit it or not. You know, so yeah, I need to go on record though and say I don't have a second team. Never in my life have a second team. Maybe the closest I've ever been was Leicester.
Oh God.
What are you saying?
I've got a second team clearly. So it's the team for Lemandem. It's Crystal Palace. They're my life.
Team for Lemandem. Nah, we like Crystal Palace to be fair.
I'm an Eze gang.
Yeah, he's an Eze fan.
Yeah, of course. He did bits for you guys. But when it comes to second teams in the Premier League, it can never be West Ham. That could never be me.
But that's because of Jamie, then, surely, no?
Yeah. But the thing is, when I was younger, because my brother played for West Ham up until he was like 17, I had like a slight affinity. And I went to the cup final in 2006 at Cardiff, where West Ham, the Steven Gerrard game.
Yeah.
So I had like a little bit of an affinity, but doing this podcast with Jamie, where he remembers everything I say, every slight on West Ham that I say, I kind of built up a disdain towards them.
Yeah, that's like him with Arsenal. I bang on about Arsenal too much, and now he fucking can't even stand the sight of them.
Yeah.
Even though you are playing good football, it makes me sick.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I said before recording it, it's the last thing the internet needs, another Arsenal fan.
But you brought up Brighton while we were talking about West Ham and how they play lovely football. Like arguably one of like the hardest to beat teams in the Premier League. Like every big club will go there and struggle, and then they just batter any team that's
Perhaps
kind of like around their level or below.
Systemic teams in the league in terms of their approach to football.
Like Graham Potter getting the best out of, I don't want to say average players because they're not average players, but like
McAllister.
They're not stars, and Graham Potter is getting like 10, 11 out of 10 out of them every game. And now Graham Potter's the Chelsea manager. Kweku, mate. How were you when you lost? We'll start with the sacking of Thomas Tuchel. How did you feel about that?
It was crazy because it was a Wednesday? It was a Wednesday, and I was just chilling at home, day off, just in my boxers till 11 a.m. thinking I'm just going to chill. The news comes through, and then 2 hours later, we're outside Stamford Bridge reporting on Thomas being sacked by Chelsea, and it was insane because obviously the night before we had lost to Zagreb in the Champions League, which was a shock. But you would have thought that Thomas Tuchel would have bought himself more time than that.
Yeah,
he's a man that's had to do a lot beyond what his actual job description is.
Yeah, 100%.
The last 6 or 7 months, my man's been answering questions about geopolitics. He's been
literally
from Chelsea actually speaking. And let's us not forget that he won Chelsea the Champions League, the second in our history. Last season, barring 2 or 3 penalties, we win 2 domestic trophies.
Yeah.
And we finished third behind 2 of the best teams in the world. Yeah. There's not much more that man could have done.
No, I back it, yeah.
You thought the board would have backed him, or they did back him in the transfer window, spending $250 million. And you thought that these were his players. Evidently, they're not his players. They're players of the board that had eyed up.
He could have beat, Leicester in the FA Cup final. He didn't do well there.
Yeah, fair enough. He could have beaten Leicester in the FA Cup final, but that summer was ultimately a success because we won the Champions League, a competition that I don't think you've ever seen your club playing. Anyway, so I think that Thomas Tuchel is one of the world-class managers. And if you look at the top 4 last season, the best 4 managers in the league finished in the top 4. So you look at...
I'll shut myself out.
You look at Man City with Pep Guardiola. You look at Liverpool with Jurgen Klopp. Look at Chelsea with Thomas Tuchel, and you look at Spurs with Antonio Conte. Football, and I've said it so many times, is a manager's game, and you go as far as a manager can take you. So the fact that Chelsea let go of one of the best managers in the world at a time where things are very, very much up in the air surprised me. I think it took a load of Chelsea fans by surprise, but as a football fan, you have to be the eternal optimist. I can sit there and cry for a couple of days, but I'm not going to stop supporting Chelsea. I'm always going to back the boys.
Yeah.
So you look at the landscape and you look at the managers that we could have brought in. A very Chelsea manager, and I thought this was going to be the case, would have been a Mauricio Pochettino.
Yeah.
He comes in, probably wins a domestic trophy and has gone in 18 months.
Yeah.
They opted for Graham Potter, who's a very different profile manager that Chelsea have ever had.
100%.
And so it's exciting times. I'm excited to see progressive football at Stamford Bridge for maybe the first time since 2011 when Ancelotti walked out the door, because it's been very pragmatic. If you look at the managers we've had in terms of Jose Mourinho, in terms of Antonio Conte, even in terms of Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see some good football at Stamford Bridge is positive.
How about Lampard?
Lampard did a good job, mate.
Bring back Sarri ball, that's what I say.
Oh, sorry, ball is probably my least favourite season in Chelsea fans. But again, Chelsea fans were very spoiled because we look back at that Sarri season, and a lot of Chelsea fans look back on it, maybe not the most positive eye, but we finished third that season and won the league. So like, there's high expectations at Chelsea, and that's the biggest question for someone like Graham Potter. It's like, can you meet these expectations? Because Chelsea fans, it's trophies or bust, and it's been like that since Roman took us over. And last season we got to 2 cup finals, and we expected to win them. So it's going to be very interesting to see if this board actually does give Potter the time that they've said they're going to give him, regardless of the fact if we finish in the top 4 or not. But it's a huge step up, and I'm excited to see what happens when Potter takes over the reins, or as Potter takes over the reins at Stamford Bridge.
Well, Luke said on a podcast a couple of weeks ago that if you hired, so this was before they hired Potter, that if they were to get Potter in, that you'd need to give him about 5 years. Chelsea, obviously, they're not known for giving a manager longer than 2 years, let's say. Do you reckon, obviously we don't know too much about Todd Boehly, he's kind of like an unknown quantity in like the league and in terms of like football ownership, but from like the early Todd Boehly era, what do you what are your opinions on Todd? Can we call him Todd? Yeah, fuck it.
It's interesting because technically he's my boss.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say.
Shit, yeah, that's
I was gonna
true.
say we had to be careful.
But in terms of in terms of, I'll be honest with it. It seems a little bit not directionless. The fact that we've appointed Graham Potter before we've appointed a director of football kind of tells you where we're at the moment in terms of there's not many football people at the club. Obviously, we've got rid of Marina Granovskaya last season. We've got rid of Petr Cech. And towards the latter stages of Tuchel's era at Chelsea, he was decrying the fact that he had to deal with things that weren't just football coaching. He had to deal with being a director of football and identifying talent.
We had the rumours of the Ronaldo saga being one of the reasons that Tuchel was actually let go in the end.
Yeah, because obviously these are American owners that have their own ideas about football or soccer, as they would say.
Yeah, they love the Ronaldo signing for them would be like, whoa, yeah, well, shirt sales through the roof.
Exactly, and it's flashing. To be honest, I was with them in signing Cristiano Ronaldo. I backed it
as well.
You can't turn your nose up at somebody who's going to guarantee you 18 to 20 Premier League goals a season. He did that in a bad United side. The Chelsea side, I think, are better than that United side. So I would have been on board for that.
Yeah.
But in terms of how they're going about business, they're new to this game, and they're up against established forces in Man City and Liverpool who have set new standards in the Premier League. Arsenal have obviously done it the right way and have brought in Arteta and have given him the time and given him the agency to do what he needs to do. And that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest word with Chelsea, and biggest thing football management is agency. You need to give the manager the confidence that they are the man who runs the roost or is the man that's in charge. You saw at Arsenal in terms of Arteta getting rid of Ozil, getting rid of Aubameyang. At Chelsea, Graham Potter needs to be given the confidence that if he doesn't like a player, the board are going to back him and the decision is going to be final. Well, it remains to be seen if that's going to be the case, but I'm very interested to see it from an outsider's point of view.
Yeah, well, one thing I would want to know is history would suggest that that's just not going to be the case. There was lots of rumblings around the club that obviously Tuchel wasn't necessarily in the Todd Boehly fan club, so to speak. And you may be employed by Chelsea, but I'm not.
Get him.
The scattergun approach from Chelsea's transfer window was outrageous. You know, you got players like, well, I know he has his injury worries, and you had players like Marcus Alonso and whatnot going out and spending money, big money on Cucurella, for example. I think it's like a great player, but it didn't address the things you need. You let Timo Werner and Romelu Lukaku go out the exit door, and now you're playing really without a recognised striker. You've got Raheem Sterling,
Aubameyang.
Yeah, obviously you've got Aubameyang coming in, but
I'll ask you a question though. Which one of those transfers would you not have done as a fan looking into it? Which one of those transfers do you think is egregious?
Aubameyang's wobbly, I'd say.
The Aubameyang one is the only one that I'd say is wobbly because he's associated with Tuchel. So to bring him in and him only have
that's crazy that his like like announcement video is pretty much just, oh yeah, I can't wait to work with Tuchel, and the next day he's being sacked. That is outrageous.
That's the one that kind of leaves me a bit puzzled, because like he was a player very much associated with Tuchel, and Tuchel was talking about him glowingly in press conferences.
Yeah,
and I do agree with your premise that it's a scattergun approach, but I'm inclined to believe that this board is going to stick to their word and give Graham Potter the time he deserves, because it's on wax. It's out there now. They've said that despite the fact, or regardless of if you finish in top 4 or not, they're going to give him time. So we'll see if they stick to their word. I still think we're finishing in the top 4, but it's whether Graham Potter can meet the expectations of Chelsea fans and the Chelsea board.
Well, how long are those expectations going to be tempered though? Because they allowed, Frank Lampard the same luxury.
It's not the same board.
Yeah,
no, I know.
Different guy in charge. Maybe
My
Todd's
point,
a different man.
Roman Abramovich allowed Frank Lampard time in his first one. As soon as it wasn't working out in his second season, he was out the exit door. Who's to suggest that Todd Bowley won't be following the same kind of model?
And then you've got to question the fans as well. Do the fans have that kind of patience? Chelsea fans, like you said, they're so used to silverware constantly. Yeah. Say Graham Potter has 2 years in the job and has won nothing. Do the fans turn on him?
I don't know. There's going to be contingents of fans that are going to turn. There's Liverpool fans right now saying they don't want a manager.
Yeah,
true. Like football fans are very, very emotional.
It's a sport, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a very fickle sport, and we saw it. We've seen it at multiple levels. We see West Ham fans. Some of them are calling for David Moyes to leave. This is a man that's got you to 6th and 7th in the last 2 seasons. So football fans are football fans. I can't legislate for what they're going to do or what they're not going to do. But what I will say is that the last 2 Chelsea managers to be sacked, there's been an outcrying from Chelsea fans decrying the decision. So you look at like Frank Lampard, when he got sacked, most Chelsea fans were in agreement that was the wrong decision. Yeah. Obviously, it turned out to be the right decision. We won the Champions League 6 months later. And you look at Thomas Tuchel, I don't think you can find many Chelsea fans that are agreeing with that decision. They wanted him to stay, despite the fact that we won nothing last season and didn't look very good towards back end of the season. So I feel like as things have progressed and Chelsea have become maybe not perennial title contenders, fans have gained a little bit more patience. Okay. So I think Chelsea fans will be more inclined to give Potter time if they're seeing progression, but that's only if they're seeing progression. If he's not good enough, he'll hear about it very soon.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you then. So in that period between sacking Tuchel and getting Potter in, who did you want in the job?
There wasn't much time, was there? Literally,
no, it was very quick, yeah.
Who did I want in the job? I will say Mauricio Pochettino, because I'm so used to that being the approach of Chelsea.
Okay.
But when it was Graham Potter and it emerged that it was going to be Graham Potter, I wasn't opposed to the idea of having somebody who's a little bit more progressive and somebody that we have to give a little bit more time to.
A bit more of a project, yeah.
There was the name Zinedine Zidane thrown in the ring at one point, wasn't there?
Difficult to assess Zidane as a football manager.
Yeah, imagine Zidane, Klopp, Guardiola, Conte in the same.
Yeah, it'd be a madness.
Box office.
Yeah.
What say the word box office? Obviously, the most box office manager of all time, in my humble opinion, is Jose Mourinho. And at the back of my head, I was thinking, is there a sensational third return to Stamford Bridge with Jose Mourinho? Obviously, that didn't happen or materialise, but I do think he'll be a Chelsea manager again at some point.
Do you reckon?
I do think he's going to come back for a third time, and I can just see it.
Don't know if the Premier League's ready for that.
There was apparently some guy from The Athletic, the football reporter. He literally said that apparently Todd Bowley inquired to Roma about the availability of Jose Mourinho.
Yeah,
that would have been interesting. Would have been
box office. This season, obviously, Man City have started. Arsenal top of the table, but Man City have started, and they sort of look very unstoppable. The Erling Haaland show is in full force. Do you think the gap now between Chelsea, Tottenham, Spurs to
Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal?
Tottenham, Arsenal, that's the one. Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal. Do you think the gap between them and City's gotten bigger or smaller?
I'll let Jamie go on that one.
It's a hard one. I still think, like, if I'm honest, I still think the top two are going to be Liverpool and Man City, if I'm honest with you. I still think there's a distinct gap between those teams and the others, but I would say that the quality of the teams around the remaining top 4 sides, I think it's more competitive there than it has been in previous seasons.
Yeah, I agree.
We haven't really spoken about Arsenal, but obviously Arsenal's transfer activity was top level, and I think the same can be said for Tottenham. And I think because of that, they've kind of bridged the gap on your Tottenhams.
Yeah.
And, even Man United, for example, who are starting to show a semblance of form now, their transfer activity has been good. I think, bringing the players in. So I think as a whole, I think the top 6 is a lot more competitive, but I would still say Man City are the standout team. And I think Liverpool are just finding their feet, dealing with the loss of Sadio Mane and a host of injuries across their squad. Hasn't been easy for them. So I still think it will be them 2 on top, but I think it'll be a lot closer than it has been previous seasons.
I do agree with it. It seems like it's very. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the
Get him.
I don't agree with the Liverpool side of things. I think Liverpool's problems run a little bit deeper than just surface level. I think there's an issue with their midfield that they didn't address.
Big issue, yeah, I agree.
There's an issue. This is the first time we've ever seen Liverpool. Obviously, when they signed Alisson and they signed Van Dijk, they were guaranteed starters no matter what happened. This Darwin Núñez transfer is the first time Liverpool signed a player for big money that, if he's not in great form, will not be starting. If Darwin Núñez is shooting blanks and Diogo Jota sitting on the bench, watching this guy up top not scoring goals, then I won't say there's going to be disharmony, but there's going to be an issue there. So I wouldn't say they backed themselves into a corner, but Darwin Núñez had one good season in Portugal and they bought him for a lot of money. So they are relying on him to perform in order for them to compete. They've been perfect for the last 2 seasons and haven't won the Premier League.
It's crazy that they're still playing a midfield of Henderson and Milner. Like, how's that? How have they allowed no recruitment in the midfield for 3 years?
It's crazy that Milner's playing alongside Harvey Elliott, who was born after he made his Premier League debut.
Honestly, mental.
They are, and so with it, it's crazy to say because Arsenal are top at the moment, but the word I'd use for the Premier League and the word I'd use for Erling Haaland is ominous and inevitable, because Man City, they've not necessarily been their best versions of themselves. We've seen Man City play a lot better, but we just know that they can turn it on, and mid-season they're going to win 13, 14, 15 games.
Literally,
pull out ahead of everyone. And that doesn't mean that Arsenal and Spurs haven't been great. And I think Spurs are the team you need to watch out for because they've got a manager that knows how to win the Premier League. But City are just miles better than everybody else, and they've got somebody in Erling Haaland. We've never seen anything like this before in terms of the rate that he's going to score goals, and the fact he's not going to a World Cup either. It means good things for Man City. So I think that Man City are the clear favourites, but I do think the teams below them have got better, barring Liverpool.
Do you think he's going to break 40 goals this season?
Erling Haaland?
Yeah.
Well, he's already ahead of, I think what the record is Salah, isn't it? And I think he's ahead of Salah at the moment of that point when, at this point in the season, I think Salah got like 9 in his last 8 games or something like that. So,
yeah,
I'd like to see it happen, but it's almost like a cheat code, isn't it? It's
such a cheat code. Such a cheat code.
I think
it's like it's. I don't know if you guys do it. I'm a big Football Manager fan, but it's like when you're a football manager and you take over the other team before the cup final, and you give them 10 strikers. Do you know what I mean? And then you just put Erling Haaland up there and he scores 5 for a game. It wouldn't surprise me if he scores 40. He's an android.
Yeah, honestly, like straight robot. He can do like any ball that's put in the box, no matter what centre back he's coming up against. He's just absolutely bullying them. And for like, what is he, like 21, 22? Imagine being like a hardened Premier League centre back and getting bullied by this 21-year-old machine.
He has no right to be as fast and athletic as he is for the size that he is.
It's crazy.
He might be the most perfect goal scoring machine that's ever been built.
Do you know, like, when I don't know if you guys are fans of other sports, but when you saw Usain Bolt come along, you're like, this guy's just different. Like, do you know what I mean? He's just, the technique's not perfect.
But so much bigger and just like so much crazier than everyone. Yeah.
Like in basketball, Shaquille O'Neal, like he's not the perfect basketball player, but he's just so much bigger and so much stronger, and he's going to dominate.
Yeah.
Erling Haaland, I'd say Mbappe's a better player than Haaland, but Haaland, what he's going to do to the league, he's going to break the Premier League, and he's going to set records that won't be broken for years and years and years.
Yeah, 100%. Like the Usain Bolt comparison is actually so on point. Like, do you know that race? I don't know what like one of his races that he did it in, but do you know where he was so far ahead that he like turns and looks at the camera as he's running? That like just gives me Haaland vibes. That he can take his mind off the game while he's playing and still like get a hat trick because he's that crazy.
Well, that goal against Borussia Dortmund, when the ball comes in, and he has no right to get his leg that high.
Yeah,
that's
nuts.
That's a hidden opportunity. Yeah. My man gets his wrong foot on it, or it's his left foot, but he should really go with his right foot. And it's an incredible finish. And I think what the word ominous, I think, comes from when I saw them in the Community Shield game, and he missed that sitter, and he laughed. and I was like, oh shit, we're about to see some madness because
literally,
he's just he's a cyborg, he's a robot,
He is.
and he's going to score a ridiculous amount of goals this season.
Yeah,
And to his credit, actually, as well, he said that before the season. He said the one thing that scared me yesterday is he saw Haaland miss the goal and laugh. He was like,
Yeah.
we're in trouble.
Yeah,
So he said that. He said that 2 months ago. You know?
And then he came out in the post-match interview, and it might have been where I don't know if it was like the first game of the season where he got 2 goals, I think. And the post-match interviewer was like, "Congratulations on your first goals in the Premier League." And he was like, "No, I'm fuming. I could have had like 4 or 5 today." And I was like, "Jesus Christ, what an absolute mental guy."
Give me PTSD here, boys. It was against West
Oh,
Ham.
yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, no, but yeah, the guy's built different. Completely built different.
Yeah, he's an absolute machine. Every time I watch City play, and he gets on the score sheet, I just think, how do you stop him? Yeah, I mean, even against Wolves, I think there was a clip where he literally is just looking at the defender as he's running. He's beating him, and he's just got his arm all over him. The defender just looks like he just doesn't want to be there. The guy is a menace, and he's going to take an absolute performance to be able to stop him.
Some teams got to just send their centre back out, go for a leg breaker, take one for the entire league.
I said this last episode, yeah. You do that, you're playing with 10 men against a Man City team who can bring on Julian Alvarez.
For the greater good. You know, like in Hot Fuzz, where they're all like, for the greater good. Literally that.
Yeah.
Literally. But we don't want to keep you boys too long. I know, so just before we wrap up, whenever you have a guest on, you hit them with a kind of like wrap-up question, and we thought we'd do the same to you. And we'll start with Jamie, just so I can get some context for my question. So obviously, Dimitri Payet, where do you sit on him? Is he like you a big fan of Dimi Payet?
West Ham cult hero, yeah.
Okay. So, my question was going to be, what would you take out of never selling Dimitri Payet or winning that Europa League semi-final last season? And if that's too easy, then I have a backup one.
It's too easy, yeah. Europa League.
Okay, yeah, I thought it'd be too easy. So my backup one is Declan Rice, one club man his whole career, or win that Europa League.
Oof.
That's a good. Yeah, I knew the Dimi Payet might have been too easy, so I had that one stashed.
It's a good one.
Yes.
I've got two answers.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'll let you have it.
So obviously with my West Ham hat on, I want to see Declan Rice playing for us as long as possible. I think he's like an immense talent. I think he's like,
I agree.
He's one of the first names on the England team sheet. I think, but at the same time, taking off my West Ham hat because of those reasons, I think he needs to be playing at the highest level, and I don't know if West Ham can provide that. There's always going to be question marks around Declan Rice, and people like this guy to my left are always going to say them at me because he's playing at West Ham and not in a Chelsea midfield or a Man City midfield, that he's not performing on the elite level. Yeah. So I think ultimately, if West Ham can't provide him the highest possible platform for football, then he does need to go, so he can further himself as a player, and it will be an immense shame, but hopefully we garner in a transfer fee for him.
Yeah.
Like I said last year, like I said earlier in the podcast, I've never seen my club win anything. Like, to see us win the Europa League would have been incredible. You look at Frankfurt, they won it, and they're in the Champions League this year. Like,
that would be crazy.
They had the Super Cup against Real Madrid. The thought of a West Ham playing against Real Madrid is just like, what? You know what I mean? So
you're saying you take the
well, if I'm being pragmatic about this, the Declan Rice sale is inevitable. It is inevitable. Okay. So I'll take the Declan Rice sale and a trophy.
Well.
Final.
It's getting to the final. What if you bottle the final?
Our back is against Frankfurt.
Okay, that is what I was thinking. I kind of left it up to you to think, oh yeah, that's a trophy, or what if we lose the final? But
look, there was so many reasons we lost that game. Like, 2 words, Aaron Cresswell.
I said this to Luke. He had just such a mare, man. It was such a bad game from him.
Which is difficult because, I mean, he's currently our longest serving player.
Yeah.
And he's been a great servant for the club. Like, even last year, he had a great season. He's got he got 8 assists for us in the league.
Yeah, just every corner Souček could get his big head on.
Yeah, he's melon of a head on it.
So literally.
Like I inherently, like, I have such a love for Aaron Cresswell, but there is something in the back of my head where I'm just like,
okay. Yeah, no, I'd back that. I think I'd probably pick the same. Like you said, Declan Rice, like, the money he'd bring into the club would be crazy, and the opportunity to get into a final and potentially win it would be mega. But that's just my opinion. Kweku, my question to you probably doesn't have as much jeopardy as that one did.
Yeah.
But still a question all the same. So who do you dislike more out of Arsenal and Tottenham? Just to...
Do you know what? It does change a lot.
Whoever's doing better.
Yeah, it does. At school, it was Arsenal because everyone supported Arsenal. I saw a couple treacherous dons defect from Chelsea to Arsenal. I remember you, Mitchell Rayner.
I was going to say out them, not the
he was a Chelsea fan and switched to Arsenal. I think that's when you guys weren't undefeated. Who do I hate more? Right now, I hate Spurs more.
Okay, and I think the question probably works better with Spurs as well. Ben Chilwell or Martin? Is it Martin? Mark Cucurella. Which one do you keep at Chelsea, and which one do you let go to Spurs?
Oh, Jesus!
Especially because Spurs, they're shambolic at wing back department, so they take. So you're giving your like rivals a pretty deep. Like both of them are good. Like Chilwell and Cucurella, both exceptional fullbacks. So you're giving Spurs a very good one. But what one are you giving them?
Oh, giving them Cucurella.
Yeah, man, it's an easy decision.
Ben Chilwell was off the back of an ACL injury.
Is he fragile?
What I'd say is that Cucurella's got a higher ceiling. Cucurella would not surprise me if, like, in 2 or 3 years' time, he's playing at Barcelona in the Champions League week in, week out. He's got a higher ceiling than Ben Chilwell, but Ben Chilwell is probably more suited to the rigours of the Premier League. And I've seen Ben Chilwell start for Chelsea and play incredibly in the Champions League final. And he's proved it. We saw him come off the bench against West Ham earlier this season and change the game.
Yeah,
obviously scored a brilliant goal and got the other assist. And I've got more of an affinity for him. I do love Cucurella's hair though. He's got
both of them. Even Chilwell's got a good head of hair on him. They're both.
He's got a good barnet, but it's strengthening Spurs though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what kind of like the under kind of handed note about it is. Like, if you say Cucurella's got a higher ceiling, do you want that high ceiling going to Spurs?
Can you say no to the both of them? Just give them Alonso.
Yeah, get Alonso back. Hand him over there.
He's gone.
No.
It's a tough one. I'd keep Ben Chilwell just because.
No, fair enough.
I've just thought of a really difficult one in my head anyway for a Chelsea fan.
Hit him.
God.
Would you rather keep Reece James or Mason Mount? I know my answer if I was a Chelsea fan.
Okay, so this is it's not even going to sound wild. Reece James, in my opinion, is the best right back in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
He's Chelsea's best player, whether that be defensively or going forward. Yeah. Mason Mount, though, is only one of 3 people last season in the Premier League to get double-digit goals and assists. And he's Chelsea's golden boy. He's our future captain. He does so much. He's going to start for England in the World Cup.
Other people, by the way?
What?
The other 2?
I can't remember.
Jared Bowen was on it.
Jared Bowen was on it. I think Mo Salah was the other one. So I would probably sell Mason Mount and keep Reece James just because I think Reece James, again, his ceiling is higher. I think with Mason Mount, he hasn't maxed out yet. There's still room to grow. And we saw the evolution of maybe it's different positions, but someone like Jordan Henderson from the age of 23 up to the age of 30 took massive strides and massive steps under the right manager. He became one of the best centre midfielders in the world, even though people don't want to give that to him. So Mason Mount's got a huge potential. I fucking love Mace, but Reece James is Beast James, man. He's Beast Flames.
I think Reece James is the most complete footballer in the Chelsea team.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone is as good defensively. I mean, he's got the whole package. You know what I mean? Going forward, defensively, his ability to carry the ball, his passing. He is just an amazing player. He really is.
Yeah. Jamie, who are you starting for England at right back? Trent or Reece James?
That's not even a question. That's not even.
You going Trent?
Absolutely not. Like,
is that like I'm of the same mindset? Like, are we like plagued because Trent has been shambolic this season?
Also, I think we've already alluded to it there. I think Reece James is one of the most. Forget Chelsea, is one of the most complete players in the Premier League.
Yeah.
If it's contentious that he's the best right back in the world, then I don't know who's making an argument. He's incredible. Trent is in that argument, don't get me wrong, but I think where Trent is a 10 out of 10 going forward, Reece James is a 9 out of 10 on everything. Do you know what I mean?
That's very true, actually.
And the one thing that he doesn't have is maybe the distribution or like the passing out. Well, to then I feel
does close enough.
I do feel like I'm doing a disservice to Reece James in saying that, but he's not as good going forward as Trent Alexander-Arnold. But for me, I want a a defender that can go both ways. And I also want, not that history suggests otherwise, but if we have a back line with players like Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire in it, that
Good
they
grief, that's a topic for another time, I think. But
again, like, I'm happy that they're in the squad from a perspective of, like, they've done it at previous tournaments. Former side, they've always performed in an England shirt. People were quick to forget Luke Shaw scored in the final. Harry Maguire was in the team of the tournament. That wasn't through luck. It was through performances. They're just not doing very well at Man United, and that's been synonymous before that those England games, by the way. But anyway, with those players in the side, there is a possibility, and because of the league performances, that you can see them pulling mistakes and whatnot. So having players like your Reece James in there, who can go backwards, isn't just two-dimensional when going forwards, then I would have him in there.
I would say with those two though, the biggest issues they'll have is Kyle Walker, because I jumped the gun maybe a little bit and saying Reece James is the best right back in the world. If you look at longevity and someone who's done it at the highest level and won the biggest trophies,
it's a crazy problem that we've arguably, like, England have got pretty much the three best centre backs in the world,
right backs,
and right backs in the world, and it's like how do you sort that out? Like,
I had him in my Premier League team of all time, Kyle Walker.
Yeah. He goes in mine as well. Gary Neville with those 8 Premier League titles. Nah.
One of our mates had Gary Neville in his, and I was like, "Are you on crack, mate? Gary Neville in your nah."
Gary Neville did a lot of David Beckham's running, but like in terms of like an actual footballer, in terms of ability, I think Kyle Walker goes in there.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I had Quake, you'd like this. I'd have Azpilicueta. I had Azpilicueta in mind for some reason.
Yeah, obviously Dave's a legend. He's actually my second favourite Chelsea player of all time.
Oh, okay.
He's just he doesn't go in there above. Walker.
Is he Chelsea's greatest ever player?
Who?
Azpilicueta.
Chelsea's greatest ever player? No.
He's won everything.
Yeah, but our greatest ever player is
Frankie. Not even Frankie Lampard.
No, you look at this is one for a different day.
Yeah. Sorry, we're just about going.
You look at Didier Drogba and you look at how important he was to Chelsea. Look at the 2 finals that we lost last season. If Drogba starts those finals, we win. He only didn't score in 1 final as a Chelsea player, and that's the Champions League final 2008 where he got sent off. Apart from that, he scored in every other final. He only lost 2 finals as a Chelsea player. He played in 10. No, he played in 12, and he lost 2. He lost against Man United in that Champions League, and he lost against Spurs in 2008. I can't remember the year. Lost against Spurs when Woodgate scored that winner. So Didier Drogba, for my money, is Chelsea's greatest ever player.
And since he's left, you've never really had that kind of crazy good striker. Maybe like Diego Costa, but he wasn't like at that level. He just was like a bit of a menace. But since Didier, it's kind of not been.
Maybe Morata.
Yeah, we love Alvaro.
Why would you say that? Why would you say such a sacrilegious thing?
But should we round it up there, boys? It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thanks for coming on. You didn't have to spend the Wednesday evening with us, but you chose to, and we're very glad that you did.
Do you guys want to plug your socials at all before you go?
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's We Talk Football Podcast. On Twitter, it's WTF Podcast 90. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. Make sure you like our videos and subscribe to our channel. We release videos weekly. So, yeah. And also, Jamie will kill me for this. We're on TikTok as well. I'm a bit old, so I don't really...
We're the exact same. We're trying to get on the TikTok hype, but we're just a little bit don't understand it fully. So we're kind of oh, shit, how do we get into that TikTok craze?
Honestly,
but we'll get there.
I'm not a big TikTok guy either, but we've just got to do it.
Yeah, bite the bullet, get on TikTok.
Yeah. So we're on TikTok as well. It's at We Talk Football Podcast. So check us out on all the socials, and
we'll have all your details down in the description. Thank you again for coming on, Jamie and Kweku, absolute legends.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
And we'd love to do this again sometime, maybe down the line when West Ham aren't in the relegation zone. That'd be nice.
Yeah,
you'll have to come jump on the podcast here. We'll have you in the 100%.
Studio. Yeah, that'd be great.
Anytime. All right, thank you very much,
boys.
guys.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
See you later.
Later.